You know, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, the President of the Republic of South Africa, announced on Sunday that we are now officially on level 4 of lockdown, right? Strict regulations have been put in place to make sure that they curb the numbers as we are going through the third wave of this COVID-19. And I remember last year, 2020 March, when we were told we were getting into lockdown level 5, the anxiety that most of us went through, the trauma that we all went through, depression felt heavy on our shoulders during that time because we just didn't understand what was going on. We just couldn't understand what he was saying, right? Now, the more the levels go higher, the more we understand that the situation is getting dire. And what we tend to do when situations get dire, we want to panic. So today I thought, let's talk about the 5 things that we should do when we get life disrupting information. I am Pulaa Montz, your inner voice magnified. So in order for us to be able to deal properly with the information that we receive, whether it being information about the loss of a loved one, level 4 lockdown, losing a job, losing a child, whatever life disrupting information that you might receive, there are things that you can do that will help you survive that period, or that will help you live through the difficult situation that you find in yourself, right? So I want to talk to you about the 5 things that you can do. The first thing, and this is the most difficult thing that I know we can do when we receive bad or life disrupting information, is keep calm. I know this is one of the most difficult things that you can do, right? Especially, when you feel like whatever information that you're receiving will really significantly change your life, or you find yourself with a group of people who just see doom and gloom, and ultimately you start believing that there's no hope. It is difficult to stay calm, but it is so important to keep yourself calm, because when you are panicked, then you start being fearful, you start being anxious, you start feeling depression, you start getting overwhelmed because you just don't see a way out, because you are panicked. When you are panicked, your ability to process the information that you are receiving gets diminished, right? So that's why you find yourself being fearful before you even understand the magnitude of what's going on. You find yourself being too anxious, sometimes reacting too strongly than you're supposed to. Your reaction is not appropriate at times for the information that you've received, simply because you allowed yourself to panic. So whatever you do, help yourself keep calm, because when you are calm, then you are able to properly process the information and properly assess whether you are able to handle it or not, whether you will need extra help, whether you will need extra resources. You can only determine such things when you are calm. So avoid being panicked when you hear bad information or life disrupting information. The second thing that you then do is to remember the lessons that you've learned before. This is not the first time you're hearing bad news. For example, if I'm talking about lockdown, this is not the first time we've been in level 4. remind yourself of the lessons that you learned last year, 2020, when we were in level 4, when we were in level 5. How did you cope? What did you learn from that situation? It is important for us to always learn from a difficult situation, because as you are learning, then you are building resilience in you. So when you eventually receive negative information or life disrupting information, if you have learned from your previous life disrupting events, then you will not be as panicked as you would be if you didn't take out lessons from traumatic experiences that you've gone through in life, right? So it is important for you to remind yourself how you worked through your feelings when you were going through traumatic or life disrupting events in your life previously. So remember the lessons. Now it is the time to pull all those lessons that you have had packed in your shells, right? In your brain. It is now time to retrieve that information, because it will help you to deal with whatever information that you are receiving currently. The third thing that you need to do when you receive life disrupting information is to recognize the kind of cognitive style that you have. You know, in cognitive psychology, there is a term called cognitive style, and basically talks about the way a person thinks, the way a person perceives or views things, the way a person remembers things, right? Your ability to think, process, or perceive and remember things. So there are people who have negative cognitive styles, and there are people who have positive cognitive styles. People with cognitive styles are those people who are optimistic about life, right? People who can take a traumatic event and see something good out of that event. People who always see hope in a hopeless situation. Those are people with cognitive positive cognitive styles. And these people don't get overly panicked when they're in situations that are difficult. But when you realize that you are a person with a negative cognitive style, that means you tend to over exaggerate a situation, right? You can take a small issue and really blow it out of proportion. You over generalize information or situation, right? So you are a pessimist towards life cognitively. So it is in you. Those are the tendencies that you have. It is important to realize that, because then when you know that you have a negative cognitive style or negative thinking style, then you are able to have a plan of, you know what, every time I get information and I start panicking about it and I start thinking about doom and gloom with regards to information that I get, then I need to speak to somebody. When you know your cognitive style, especially when it's negative, then you develop strategies, you develop plans that will help you when you receive information, like having a friend, being able to bounce off information that you've received on a friend who maybe has a positive cognitive style, who will help you sift through this information that you've received so that you can see the light in the midst of the situation that you find in yourself. So knowing yourself for all situations is always a good idea. It is important to understand who you are. It is important to have a relationship with yourself, because when you know what your strengths are, when you know what your weaknesses are, then you are able to develop some little strategies and plans that will help you overcome the weaknesses that you have, that will help you overcome your negative cognitive style. It's not a bad thing. It's just a tendency to think negatively about things. So if you have a tendency, it doesn't mean you can't think positively. It just means maybe you might need extra help to be able to sift through the information so that you are now in a position where you can look at it in a positive light for yourself, right? So the fourth thing that you should be doing when you get life disrupting information is to take time out and process the information on your own. That is so important, because sometimes you might be hearing information and you're with a group of people and this information is life disrupting for all of you. For example, the president was talking and you were with a group of friends and you find that is one thing that attacks all of you. I mean, it will disrupt everybody's life, right? And you find yourself within a group where the most vocal person is a person who's got a negative cognitive style. And maybe you've got a positive cognitive style, but you are an introvert, right? Then you find yourself taking in all these comments about how this is doom and gloom, how we will never survive beyond this third wave. I mean, people can get you depressed and hopeless about a situation that otherwise, if you were to have thought about it on your own, taken time to process it on your own, you would have been able to handle. But now you're panicked, you've got anxiety because you listened to people maybe who are inclined to be pessimistic about everything. So it is important, even if you hear information within a group, take time out on your own to reprocess the information. And sometimes when we hear life-disrupting information, we are so quick to want to talk to other people about it, to want to get advice from people. Sometimes you don't even know what advice you need, but you are there talking about this negative thing that's happening or these negative news that you've just received, but you haven't even processed it. That's why you find when a person says, but how can I help you? You find yourself not even knowing the kind of help that you need because you didn't take time to process the information. So it is important when you hear such disruptive information, ask yourself, how am I feeling about this? What is the impact of it in my life? Can I reverse this news, or can I reverse the impact of what's happening? If I cannot, do I have the resources to handle whatever is going on? And in processing, it is important to stay present. It is important to stay present because when you start thinking about the future and you are too emotional, you'll find that you get yourself too overwhelmed. So it is important to think about right now, in the present moment, what do you have? Do I have enough resources? If I don't, who do I have in my life who can help me out? Do I need other people's time? Do I need other people's money to be able to go through this traumatic event or to process this information that I'm receiving? So when you've processed the information, you are in a more better position to go to other people and say, you know what? This is what I've just received, and this is the kind of resource that I have, and this is the kind of help that I would need from you. So it becomes a more productive conversation an effective conversation that you have with your friends or whoever it is that is in the position to help you out to deal with whatever situation or the impact of the news that you've received, right? So we are able to communicate properly what we need when we have processed the information for ourselves. And lastly, once you've gone through all of that, you are in a better position to develop a strategy on how to move forward without panicking. There's no need to panic anymore because we only panic when we don't know the future, right? When we don't have a plan even. If we don't have a plan, then we panic, right? But once you've sorted through all of these emotions, you've sorted through all of these things out, you now know yourself better, you'll be able to develop a strategy on how to move forward. And when you develop a strategy, that's when you start learning lessons. That's when you start jotting down the kind of lessons that you're taking away from this traumatic event or from these traumatic news that you've just received, right? You are now able to say, okay, what do I need to do now? Do I need to scale down or not? Can I keep everything that I have, and can I still maintain the kind of lifestyle that I'm living with taking into account the kind of news that I've received, right? We are able to plan ahead. If you're a business, then you're able to say, am I going to need a loan to see me through this third wave, for example? And because will I be able to pay for the loan? Looking back at how my sales have been since 2020, how much loan can I get that I will be able to repay beyond this third wave? You are able to develop a strategy that will help you to move forward in a calm manner and a positive manner. So those are the 5 things. If I can just recap, the first thing is to keep calm. The second thing is to remember the lessons that you've learned. The third thing is to process information on your own. The fourth thing is to recognize your cognitive style. And lastly, develop a strategy to move forward. I am Pulaa Montz, your inner peace and purpose coach.